Welcome back. As the presidential election approaches, fewer Americans ages 18 to 29 plan to vote in 2024. This is partly due to their dissatisfaction with the choices of candidates available this year. However, there are organizations such as the Hispanic Federation that aim to encourage young people, as well as those from Hispanic and Latino backgrounds, to exercise their right to vote. The Senior Director for Government Community Partnerships at the Hispanic Federation, Emely Paez, joins me to discuss this mission. Emily, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the Hispanic Federation?
Sure. So Hispanic Federation was founded in 1990, and the organization really seeks to empower and advance the Hispanic community, supporting Hispanic families and strengthening Latino institutions through the work in areas of education, health, immigration, civic engagement, economic empowerment, and the environment. Really, the Federation serves as an organization that is providing resources and capacity building to 600 Latino-led and Latino-serving nonprofit organizations throughout 43 states. So as I mentioned, really our mission is really to empower the Latino community, and as from its founding, it's really viewed civic engagement as an integral part of its mission. Our community cannot be empowered if we are not engaging in our political system. And that's why, we at Hispanic Federation are really committed to increasing Latino civic participation across the country. We truly understand that in order for our democracy to truly work, all eligible voters must be involved in the process.
Now, in what ways the Hispanic Federation aims to help and uplift the Latino community around the nation?
Sure. So over the years, really, Hispanic Federation has worked alongside many local nonprofit organizations that have really helped build capacity for them. Just in 2023 alone, over 20 million were issued out in grants to help our local grassroots nonprofit organizations. As capacity builders over the last 5 years, we've have worked with our local member agencies and our community partners and have helped integrate civic engagement as part of their curriculum. And in New York in particular, we actually funded 15 organizations, provided them resources, but also provided them guidance through how to incorporate civic engagement as part of the efforts that they have within their organization. It's very, very important for us to debunk dis and misinformation around participation, really providing them with talking points or graphics to our member agencies, putting them with actual verified information on their digital platforms, uplifting our voices as a collective, and also providing nonpartisan information, voter deadlines that are coming up, and tools really to help them thrive within their organizations.
Now, I really want to take a moment to highlight basically, just the idea of voter turnout. Now, as we know, one of the current issues our nation is facing is very low voter turnout, specifically with, younger Americans. How does the Hispanic Federation work with direct engagement just to kind of connect with young voters?
So we understand that the Latino population is a young electorate. A lot of our population are just coming of age. So I'm glad that you're mentioning that because it's a really critical, important piece to the Hispanic Federation. Latinos are the second largest voting group in the United States, and it's also the youngest, right? As I mentioned, about 31% of Latino eligible voters are between the ages of 18 and 29. Putting that into perspective, we're talking about roughly 10 million young Latino voters. While the data shows that voters from that age range certainly need to catch up to the others, right, in terms of our turnout, we understand that in 2020, compared to 2021, there was a significant factor that really did bring out a lot of our Latino voters, and also oftentimes we as the Latino voting bloc are determining how many battle states are kind of swinging in what direction they're going to go in. So we understand that how important cultural competency is when it comes down to ensuring that we're engaging with our community in a way that we're meeting them where they are and really framing our engagement around their needs and the things that are critically important to them.
Now, can you just expand a little bit more just about the concerns surrounding the Latino community and voter engagement? I know that this unfortunately happens to be an issue for a lot of minorities or people who don't feel represented in politics. So can you just talk a little bit more about the concerns surrounding that?
Absolutely. When we think about voting and when we think about civic engagement and when we put that and factor into Latino households, voting is not top of mind to our communities, and it's not something that it's not just that we just don't want to participate. Oftentimes there's so much jargon and there's so much within us and our households and going out to vote, right? Civics isn't as fluid of a language that is spoken to at home for us. And this is not all Latino families, right? But a good portion of our communities are not coming out to vote. But, you know, understanding those challenges really help us kind of frame how we essentially target and address our community. For many Latinos, there is a lot of mistrust in government, and you know, this mistrust oftentimes comes from our respective countries of origin, and then factoring out our basic survival needs of day-to-day activities, and you know, setting aside time to go out and vote oftentimes becomes a low priority. So understanding those concerns around the complexities of involving our community in the civic process is critically important for us to, you know, not be tone deaf to the reality of what really prevents us, you know, from voting as a community as a whole.
Now, what are some of the challenges getting Latino voters to register just in general?
So one of the challenges that we have seen, you know, in terms of particularly registering our communities to vote, have really been, you know, one is just a matter of like perhaps our communities not knowing that if you moved your residence, may have been just down the block, but if you moved your residence, you do have to update your voter registration form. So there's a lot of nuances around just overall basic understanding of how we go out and vote. You know, recently during the redistricting process, where we have new, you know, representative communities and districts that represent our areas, a lot of our communities perhaps weren't aware about registering themselves or updating the voter registration forms. And so we kind of, you know, our key mission is to not only engage with them now through our digital platforms or engaging with them through our text peer-to-peer, but also being on the ground, being there in person, having voter registration forms on file in not just English, but you know, in Spanish as well, and other non-English languages to meet our communities where they are. I think it's really important. So a lot of challenges around voter registration, but as long as we are there and we're constantly having these touch points with our community, whether it be digitally, whether it be via text or in person, I think all of those really kind of help us target, you know, registering more of our communities to vote.
Now, as you mentioned, Latinos make up a large percentage of eligible voters. With that being said, Democrats and Republicans are sharpening their strategies to reach Latino voters ahead of November's presidential election. In what ways have we seen the two parties reach out or just try to connect with the Latino community?
So it's been interesting to see the way the political parties have engaged with our communities. But one thing I would definitely hone in saying is that when we are working with our communities, it's really important for political parties to not just show up when there is an election cycle taking place, understanding that we are not a monolithic group and that we come with a variety of different issues that are critically important to us. When we think about political parties kind of swaying in specific issue areas, we need to also look at the Latino electorate and the diversity of that community. And so I think that political parties have a critical job into remaining in our communities, not just on election year periods, but also throughout, to really kind of understand the needs of our community to help govern these policies that are ultimately going to affect us locally.
Now, I also want to highlight that just recent polls and data from recent election cycles show Hispanic voters who have historically backed Democratic candidates may be increasingly more open to the GOP's message. Can you just talk about, I know we talked about like not being a monolith, and I think that could be spoken to when we talk about, you know, just the data in recent polls, but, you know, do you have any ideas or reasons why we may be seeing this shift?
Well, oftentimes right now, we've seen a shift in the things that oftentimes matter to our communities, and whether it be the economy, education, health, immigration, and a slew of other issue areas, we need to look at the complexities and the variety of these issue areas. And so when we're talking about, the way that oftentimes these political parties are engaging with our communities, we need to be considering the amount and the population size that we share and the ability that we have to really swing a particular vote. We need to not be an afterthought in terms of our community and as a whole, that there needs to be a more embedded effort to really understand the totality and holistically our needs.
Now, it was mentioned, but I think it's so important to highlight again, misinformation. In what ways can voters ensure that they're receiving accurate information during the election and they're just making informed decisions?
Absolutely. At the forefront is making sure that our voters are making informed decisions when they're going out to vote. Whether, our work is very nonpartisan, everything that we do at Hispanic Federation is essentially equipping the voter with all of the essential tools that they need in order to thrive and make an informed decision. And so right now, we really lean on systems that have already been in place that our households are going to receive. One thing and a great example that I can use and share with everyone is the New York City Votes website and platform. It's newyorkcityvotes.org, and they are an initiative of New York City's Campaign Finance Board that independently city agency ensures that there are local fair elections, inclusive, and that they are open. So I think that this system really works well. It have multiple languages available. So when we think about debunking information, I think that sources are really critically important when we look to find accuracy in information, when we look to find accuracy in voter deadlines and just the bare basics, who's voting, who are we voting for. I mentioned New York City Votes because they also do provide a voter guide that is mailed to every single person's household. It's in Spanish and English. So if you are very unfamiliar with voting and it's not something that you are, very privy to, start there. Keep an eye out in your mail and, you'll get this voter guide. Again, it's in Spanish and English, and it walks you through what you're going to be expecting this election, right? In New York State, voter fatigue has been really critically real, and we've seen that. So understanding, why is this particular election critically important? Who are we voting for? What jurisdictions do they fall under? What kind of policies do they cover that are going to locally impact me? Because as we know, politics is all local.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this very important conversation, especially in a borough like the Bronx. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And again, one thing I would just say is I encourage everyone to vote and encourage those that are within, their phone messages to just text them, and also in getting out to vote as well this election. So.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We have more Open View right after this.